My husband tried to make everyone believe I was crazy, but a hidden camera exposed the truth. The wife no one believed. Have you ever tried to tell the truth, only to realize that no one believed you? That was exactly what happened to me. My name is Emily Carter, and there was a time when I believed I had the perfect life. I had a loving husband, a beautiful home, and a future that seemed full of hope. Or at least, that's what everyone else believed. Behind our front door, everything was falling apart. The most frightening part wasn't that my husband lied to me. It was that he slowly convinced everyone that I was the one who couldn't be trusted. And for a while, it actually worked. When I married Daniel, he was kind, thoughtful, and incredibly charming. He remembered birthdays. He surprised me with flowers. He made everyone laugh. My family adored him. My friends often said, "Emily, you're so lucky." I believed them. For the first 3 years of our marriage, life felt peaceful. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We dreamed about starting a family, traveling the world, and growing old together. I never imagined those dreams would become my biggest heartbreak. The changes were so small that I almost ignored them. Daniel became forgetful. Or at least, that's what he wanted me to believe. One morning I placed my car keys on the kitchen counter before making breakfast. 10 minutes later, they were gone. I searched everywhere. Finally, Daniel walked into the living room holding them. "You left them in the bedroom again." I frowned. "No, I didn't." He laughed. "You've been forgetting things a lot lately." I apologized. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just distracted. A few days later, the same thing happened. This time it was my phone. I clearly remembered placing it beside my laptop. When I couldn't find it, Daniel smiled and pulled it out of the laundry basket. "You really need to slow down. I never put it there." He looked concerned. "Emily, are you feeling okay?" His voice sounded gentle, caring, loving, but something about it made me uncomfortable. Weeks passed. The strange incidents became more frequent. My purse would disappear. Important documents would suddenly be missing. Medicine bottles changed places. Even family photos were moved around the house. Every time I questioned it, Daniel had an explanation. Every explanation ended the same way. "You must have forgotten." At first, I believed him. Then, I started questioning myself. One evening, my younger sister Sophie came over for dinner. While Daniel was preparing coffee, I quietly told her what had been happening. "I think something is wrong." She looked worried. "What do you mean?" "I keep losing things. I forget conversations. I know something isn't right." Before Sophie could answer, Daniel returned. He smiled kindly. "I've been worried about her too." Sophie looked at him. "Really?" He sighed. "I didn't want to say anything, but she's been forgetting simple things almost every day." He sounded heartbroken, like a husband trying to protect his wife. Sophie slowly turned toward me. Her expression changed. She looked concerned. Not for Daniel. For me. At that moment, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't just lying to me. He was planting the same story in everyone else's mind. A month later, my parents invited us over for dinner. Everything seemed normal until my father asked, "Emily, have you been under a lot of stress lately?" I looked confused. "Why?" He hesitated. "Daniel mentioned you've been forgetting things." My heart sank. I looked at my husband. He immediately shook his head. "I only told them because I was worried. I thought maybe they could help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I never asked you to tell them." He reached for my hand. "I know, but I love you." I couldn't stay silent. To everyone else, he looked like the perfect husband. To me, he looked like a complete stranger. After dinner, I confronted him in the car. "Why are you telling people I'm losing my memory?" He kept his eyes on the road. "I'm telling them because I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "That something might be happening to you." I shook my head. "Nothing is happening to me." He looked at me with fake sadness. "I hope you're right." Those 4 words stayed in my mind for days. The following week, things became even worse. One morning I found the front door wide open. Daniel looked shocked. "You left it unlocked all night." "I know I locked it." He sighed. "You don't remember." Later that afternoon, he called me while I was shopping. "Emily, you left the oven on again." "I wasn't even cooking today." There was silence. Then he quietly replied, "Maybe you just don't remember." By the time I got home, I started wondering if he was right. Could I really be forgetting all these things? Was I losing control? Or was someone making me believe I was? That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every strange moment in my head, every missing object, every forgotten conversation, every worried look from my family. Something didn't make sense. If I truly had a memory problem, why did I remember every detail so clearly? Why did everything only happen when Daniel was around? The question echoed through my mind, and for the first time, I stopped blaming myself. Instead, I started watching him. I didn't have proof. Not yet, but deep inside, I knew one thing. Someone was lying, and I was going to find out who. No matter how long it took, my husband tried to make everyone believe I was crazy. But a hidden camera exposed the truth. The perfect plan to destroy me. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. For weeks, I had questioned myself. I had blamed my memory. I had wondered if I was losing my mind. But after everything that had happened, I wasn't watching myself anymore. I was watching Daniel. For the first time since we got married, I stopped seeing him as my loving husband. I started seeing him as someone hiding something. And that changed everything. I didn't accuse him. I didn't argue. Instead, I acted exactly the way he expected. If he said I forgot something, I simply nodded. If he looked worried, I thanked him for caring. I wanted him to believe his plan was working. The less suspicious he felt, the more likely he was to make a mistake. A few days later, I decided to run a small test. Before leaving for work, I placed my wedding ring inside a small jewelry box in our bedroom. I took a picture of it with my phone. Then I closed the box and left the house. When I came home that evening, the ring was gone. Daniel was sitting on the couch, reading a magazine. I calmly walked into the bedroom, opened the empty box, and returned to the living room. Daniel, have you seen my ring? He looked surprised. You were wearing it this morning. No, I wasn't. He frowned. Emily, you even showed it to me before leaving. I stared at him. I never touched it. He slowly stood up and walked toward the kitchen. A few seconds later, he returned holding the ring. It was in the silverware drawer. He smiled gently. You've really got to stop worrying. I forced a smile. You're probably right. But inside, I knew he was lying. The photograph on my phone proved it. The ring had never been anywhere near the kitchen. That night, while Daniel slept, I quietly checked our bank account. At first, everything looked normal. Then I noticed several small transfers to an unfamiliar account. The amounts weren't huge. A few $100s here, a few hundred there. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But together, it added up to thousands of dollars. I printed the statements and hid them inside a folder at my office. Something bigger was happening. I just didn't know why. The following weekend, Daniel suggested we visit his parents. During lunch, his mother smiled at me. Daniel says you've been having a difficult time lately. I looked at him. He avoided my eyes. His father added, memory problems can happen to anyone. You shouldn't be embarrassed. I realized he had been telling the same story to his entire family. Carefully, patiently, one person at a time. He wasn't just creating doubt. He was building witnesses. On the drive home, I finally asked him, have you told anyone else? He looked confused. About what? My so-called memory problems. He sighed. Emily, I'm only asking people for advice. I want to help you. His voice sounded so convincing that anyone listening would have believed him. If I hadn't lived through it, maybe I would have believed him too. A few days later, I met my best friend, Rachel, for coffee. She noticed I looked exhausted. Emily, what's going on? For a moment, I almost stayed silent. Then I told her everything. The missing items, the conversations, the bank transfers. Daniel telling everyone I was mentally unstable. Rachel didn't interrupt. When I finished, she leaned forward. Have you considered the possibility that he's doing this on purpose? I nodded. I have, but I can't prove it. She thought for a moment. Then stop trying to catch him yourself. What do you mean? Let the truth catch him. I looked at her, confused. She lowered her voice. Install hidden cameras. The idea stayed in my mind all day. At first, it felt wrong. Daniel was my husband, the man I had trusted with my life. The thought of secretly recording him broke my heart. But then I remembered something. Trust had already been broken. I just wasn't the one who broke it. The next afternoon, while Daniel was at work, I bought 3 small hidden cameras. One for the living room, one for the kitchen, one for our bedroom. They were tiny enough to blend into ordinary household objects. No one would notice them, especially not Daniel. As I installed the final camera, my hands trembled. Not because I was afraid of what I might find, because I was afraid of what I already suspected. That evening, Daniel came home carrying flowers. "For you." I smiled politely. "They're beautiful." He kissed my forehead. "I've been worried about you." I looked into his eyes. For years, those eyes had made me feel safe. Now, they made me wonder how many lies they had hidden. He had no idea the cameras were already recording. Every smile, every conversation, every move, his perfect plan was about to become his biggest mistake. And before long, the truth would be captured by something that never forgets. A camera. My husband tried to make everyone believe I was crazy. But a hidden camera exposed the truth. The hidden camera recorded everything. For the next few days, I acted exactly the same. I smiled. I thanked Daniel whenever he pretended to help me. I even apologized when he claimed I had forgotten something. He believed every word. He thought I was completely under his control. What he didn't know was that every room in our house was quietly recording the truth. All I had to do was wait. 3 days later, I came home from work and checked the camera footage for the first time. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Daniel cooked dinner, watched television, answered a few emails. I almost convinced myself that I had imagined everything. Then, at exactly 8:17 p.m., the bedroom camera captured something that made my heart stop. Daniel walked to my dresser. He opened the jewelry box. He took out my necklace. He looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then he quietly walked into the kitchen and placed it inside a cereal box. I stared at the screen. I couldn't breathe. The necklace I had spent hours searching for the week before had never been lost. He had hidden it himself. I kept watching. The next morning, before leaving for work, Daniel picked up my car keys from the hallway table. He slipped them into the pocket of an old winter coat hanging in the closet. That evening, when I couldn't find them, he acted surprised. "Emily," he said gently, "you left them in your coat again." He even smiled as he handed them back to me. Watching it on video made me realize how carefully he had rehearsed everything. Every expression, every worried look, every fake smile. It wasn't concern. It was performance. The following day's recording was even worse. Daniel picked up my phone while I was taking a shower. He opened my calendar and deleted 2 important appointments. Then he placed the phone back exactly where he found it. Later that afternoon, I missed both meetings. When I told him I didn't understand what had happened, he hugged me. "It's okay," he whispered. "Everyone forgets things." I remembered crying in his arms that day, believing something was wrong with me. Now I knew the truth. Nothing had been wrong with my memory. Someone had been stealing my confidence, one lie at a time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the living room floor watching hours of footage. Each video revealed another piece of the puzzle. He moved my purse. He switched medication bottles. He unplugged the coffee maker, then blamed me for forgetting. He even changed the settings on my alarm clock so I would wake up late. Every mistake I believed I had made had actually been created by him. Tears rolled down my face, not because I was angry, because I realized how close I had come to believing his lies. Then came the recording that changed everything. Late Friday night, Daniel thought I was asleep. He walked into the living room and answered a phone call. The hidden camera recorded every word. He laughed quietly. "She's starting to doubt herself." There was a pause. Then he continued, "A few more weeks, and everyone will believe she's mentally unstable." Another pause. "I've already spoken to her family. They're on my side." I felt sick, but he wasn't finished. "If everything goes according to plan, I'll have control of the house and the investment accounts. I've already talked to my lawyer. Once she's declared mentally unfit, it will be easy." My hands began shaking. This wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was a carefully planned scheme. He wanted my life, my home, my savings, and he was willing to destroy my reputation to get them. I replayed the recording 3 times. Each time, hoping I had misunderstood. Each time, hearing the same words. There was no doubt anymore. The man I had trusted with my future had been planning my downfall. The next morning, Daniel smiled as if nothing had happened. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" I forced myself to smile back. Very well. He kissed my forehead before leaving for work. As soon as the front door closed, I locked it behind him. Then I called Rachel. I have the proof. She answered immediately. What did you find? I took a deep breath. Everything. There was silence. Then she quietly said, Don't confront him. What? Not yet. He's already trapped. Now we make sure he can't escape. That afternoon, Rachel introduced me to an experienced attorney named Michael Harris. I showed him the videos, the bank statements, and the recorded phone call. He watched every clip without interrupting. When the last video ended, he slowly closed his notebook. This is one of the most disturbing manipulation cases I've ever seen. I lowered my eyes. What do I do now? He looked directly at me. You stay calm. You collect more evidence. And when the time is right, we let the truth speak for itself. For the first time in months, I didn't feel helpless. I didn't feel broken. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Because Daniel still believed his plan was working. He had no idea that every lie, every fake smile, every secret conversation had already been captured forever. And soon, the whole world would see the truth he worked so hard to hide. My husband tried to make everyone believe I was crazy. But a hidden camera exposed the truth. I stayed silent and collected proof. After meeting with my attorney, Michael Harris, I wanted only one thing. To confront Daniel. To throw the videos in front of him and demand an explanation. To ask him one simple question. Why? But Michael stopped me before I could make that mistake. Emily, he said calmly, people who create this kind of plan rarely admit the truth when they're caught. They lie. They manipulate. And if they realize you have evidence, they'll destroy every piece of it. So for now, you stay exactly the way you've been. You let him believe he's winning. Those words were difficult to accept. But deep down, I knew he was right. That evening, Daniel came home carrying my favorite dessert. I thought we'd have a quiet night together. I smiled politely. That sounds nice. As we ate dinner, he looked at me with fake concern. Emily, I think you're working too hard. You seem tired. I nodded. Maybe I am. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I've been thinking. What if you took some time off? You could rest. Maybe even see a specialist. I almost laughed. Now I understood exactly why he wanted me to stop working. If I stayed home, isolated from everyone, it would be even easier for him to convince people that something was wrong with me. Instead, I simply smiled. I'll think about it. He looked satisfied. He believed I was slowly giving up. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly continued collecting evidence. Every night, I reviewed the hidden camera footage. Every morning, I backed it up onto 2 separate hard drives and a secure cloud account. Michael had insisted on multiple copies. If anything happens to one, he said, the truth will still survive. I followed every instruction carefully. The cameras continued recording, and Daniel continued making mistakes. One afternoon, while I was supposedly at work, the bedroom camera recorded him opening my filing cabinet. He searched through insurance documents, property records, investment statements. Then he photographed several pages with his phone. Later that evening, he casually asked, Have you updated your will recently? The question sounded innocent, but after seeing the footage, I knew exactly why he was asking. A few days later, another recording shocked me even more. Daniel invited someone to the house while I was away. A man wearing an expensive suit. They sat at our dining table discussing paperwork. The audio wasn't perfect, but one sentence was crystal clear. The visitor said, If the medical evaluation supports your claim, everything becomes much easier. Daniel nodded confidently. She already doubts herself. Everyone else will too. I immediately sent the recording to Michael. He called me within minutes. Excellent. He's giving us exactly what we need. Despite everything I had discovered, pretending was exhausting. Some nights, I cried after Daniel fell asleep. Not because I missed the man he had become. Because I missed the man I thought I had married. I kept asking myself the same question. Had that kind, loving husband ever been real? Or had he simply been playing a role from the very beginning? Rachel became my greatest source of strength. Every weekend, we met for coffee. She reminded me why I couldn't quit. Emily, she said one afternoon, you've already survived the hardest part. What was that? Believing his lies. Now you know the truth. Never let him make you doubt yourself again. Her words gave me strength. For the first time in months, I looked in the mirror and recognized the woman staring back at me. She wasn't weak. She wasn't broken. She wasn't losing her mind. She had simply been betrayed. Then, something unexpected happened. Daniel made a mistake he never saw coming. One Friday evening, he left his laptop open before taking a shower. Normally, I respected his privacy. But after everything I had learned, I couldn't ignore the opportunity. His email was already open. The first message caught my attention immediately. Subject: property transfer documents. My heart raced. I clicked it. Inside were several emails between Daniel and a legal consultant. They discussed transferring ownership of our shared vacation property. Not with my approval. Without my knowledge. One message ended with the words, "Once the medical reports are finalized, her signature won't be necessary." I quickly took photographs of every email using my phone. Then I closed the laptop exactly as I had found it. Minutes later, Daniel walked back into the room. He smiled. "Everything okay?" I smiled back. "Everything's fine." He had no idea that another piece of his plan had just fallen into my hands. The following Monday, Michael reviewed the new evidence. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. "This changes everything." "Is it enough?" He nodded. "It's more than enough. But we still need the perfect moment." "What kind of moment?" "The kind where he can't deny anything. The kind where everyone who believed his story hears the truth at the same time." I understood immediately. We weren't just preparing to expose Daniel. We were preparing to restore my name, to show my family, my friends, and everyone who had doubted me that I had never been the problem. The truth was finally complete. Now, all we needed was the right moment to reveal it. And when that moment came, Daniel's carefully built world would begin to collapse. My husband tried to make everyone believe I was crazy, but a hidden camera exposed the truth. The truth was revealed in front of everyone. 4 weeks, I had remained silent. I smiled when Daniel expected me to smile. I thanked him when he pretended to care. I acted exactly like the confused wife he wanted everyone to believe I was. But behind the scenes, everything was ready. The videos were backed up. The bank records were organized. The emails were printed. Every piece of evidence had been reviewed by my attorney, Michael. Now, there was only one step left. Reveal the truth. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Daniel called me one evening with exciting news. "My parents are hosting a family dinner this Saturday. They want everyone to come." Our parents. My sister Sophie, Daniel's brother, a few close family friends. Almost everyone who had believed his story would be there. I looked at Michael after ending the call. He smiled. "I think we just found our moment." Saturday evening arrived. The dining room was filled with laughter. Everyone greeted Daniel warmly. Several relatives hugged him. "You've been taking such good care of Emily. We know this hasn't been easy for you." Daniel lowered his head, pretending to be emotional. "I'm just doing my best." I watched him perform. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed him too. Halfway through dinner, Daniel gently placed his hand on mine. He looked around the table. "I want to thank all of you. You've supported Emily through a very difficult time." My heart raced. He was still trying to convince everyone. Then he added, "I'm hoping she'll finally agree to meet another specialist next week." My father looked at me with concern. "Emily, maybe it's worth considering." Before I could answer, Michael quietly stood up from the other side of the room. Most people didn't know who he was. Daniel looked confused. "Excuse me." Michael smiled politely. "My name is Michael Harris. I'm Emily's attorney." The room instantly fell silent. Daniel's smile disappeared. "My attorney," he repeated. I slowly stood beside Michael. "Yes, and there's something everyone here deserves to see." Michael connected his laptop to the television in the living room. Daniel took a step forward. "What is this?" Michael calmly replied, "The truth." The first video began to play. Everyone watched as Daniel secretly removed my necklace from the jewelry box and hid it inside a cereal box. The room became completely silent. Daniel's mother covered her mouth. "No!" she whispered. The second clip played. Daniel hid my car keys inside an old winter coat. Then another. He changed the alarm clock, moved important documents. deleted appointments from my phone. Every lie, every trick, every manipulation. One after another. No one said a word. The only sound in the room was the television. Daniel suddenly stood up. This isn't what it looks like. Michael paused the video. Then perhaps you'd like to explain. Daniel opened his mouth. But no words came out. Because the next recording was even worse. The hidden camera showed him making the late-night phone call. Everyone heard his own voice. She's starting to doubt herself. Soon everyone will believe she's mentally unstable. Then I'll have control of the house and the accounts. His exact words echoed through the room. When the recording ended, silence filled the house. No one looked at me. Everyone was staring at Daniel. My sister Sophie began to cry. She walked over to me. I'm so sorry. I thought. She couldn't finish the sentence. I hugged her tightly. It's okay. You believed what you were told. Then my father slowly stood. He looked directly at Daniel. I trusted you. You made us believe our own daughter needed help. Daniel tried to speak. I can explain. My father shook his head. No. You've already explained everything. You just didn't realize the camera was listening. Daniel's mother had tears running down her face. She looked at her son in disbelief. How could you do this? You promised you loved her. Daniel looked around the room, searching for someone to defend him. No one did. For the first time since this nightmare had begun, he was completely alone. Michael handed several documents to my father. These are copies of the financial transfers and property documents. He then placed printed emails on the table. They show that Daniel was preparing legal paperwork based on the false claim that Emily was mentally incapable of managing her own affairs. Everyone quietly read the papers. Each page revealed another lie, another betrayal, another step in Daniel's plan. Finally, I looked directly at Daniel. My voice was calm. I spent months believing something was wrong with me. I questioned my memory. I questioned my sanity. I even questioned my own worth. Tears filled my eyes. But the problem was never me. It was the person I trusted most. Daniel lowered his head. For the first time, he had nothing left to say. His carefully planned story had fallen apart, not because I screamed, not because I argued, but because the truth spoke louder than either of us ever could. As I walked out of that house with Michael by my side, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Freedom. Daniel's secret was no longer hidden, and in just a few days, he would begin facing the consequences of every choice he had made. My husband tried to make everyone believe I was crazy, but a hidden camera exposed the truth. Justice finally arrived and a new beginning. The days after the family dinner were strangely quiet. For months, I had lived in fear, constantly questioning my own memory and wondering if I was slowly losing my mind. Now, the silence felt different. It wasn't filled with fear anymore. It was filled with peace. For the first time in a long time, I could wake up without doubting myself. I could look in the mirror and recognize the woman staring back at me. I wasn't broken. I wasn't confused. I had simply survived one of the greatest betrayals of my life. A few days later, Daniel tried calling me. Once, twice, then 10 more times. His messages changed with every hour. Please let me explain. I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. We can fix this. I never replied. Some conversations end the moment the truth is revealed. There was nothing left to discuss. Michael continued handling everything professionally. The financial records, the hidden camera footage, the emails, and the bank statements clearly showed what had happened. Because of the overwhelming evidence, the legal process moved forward smoothly. The attempt to gain control of our shared property failed completely. Every financial account remained protected, and the assets were divided according to the law. Justice didn't arrive through anger. It arrived through patience, preparation, and the truth. News of what had happened slowly spread through our families. The same relatives who had once looked at me with pity now looked at me with respect. Many of them called to apologize. My father visited one afternoon carrying a small photo album. He sat quietly beside me. I should have trusted you. Tears filled his eyes. When you said something felt wrong, I should have listened. I smiled gently. You believed someone you thought was honest. So did I. He hugged me tightly. I'll never make that mistake again. For the first time in months, I felt like I had my family back. A week later, Sophie invited me to lunch. She looked embarrassed. I keep thinking about everything. I ignored the signs. I reached across the table and held her hand. This wasn't your fault. He manipulated everyone. She smiled through her tears. You've become stronger than I ever imagined. I laughed softly. I didn't know I had a choice. Sometimes strength isn't something we choose. Sometimes it's something we discover when life gives us no other option. Months passed. Instead of focusing on the past, I began rebuilding my future. I accepted a leadership position at the company where I had always dreamed of working. I rented a bright apartment overlooking a small park. Every morning, sunlight filled the living room. Every evening, I sat on the balcony with a cup of coffee and reminded myself how far I had come. For the first time in years, home felt safe. One afternoon, Rachel came to visit. She looked around my apartment and smiled. I haven't seen you this happy in years. I laughed. I finally sleep through the night. She raised her coffee cup. To new beginnings. To new beginnings. We both smiled. Some friendships become stronger after surviving difficult seasons together. Ours certainly had. Several months later, I received an invitation to speak at a local conference about emotional manipulation and rebuilding self-confidence. At first, I hesitated. Then I remembered the woman I used to be. The woman who cried because she believed she was losing her mind. If sharing my story could help even one person avoid that pain, it would be worth it. Standing on the stage, I looked at the audience and said, there may come a time when someone makes you question your own reality. They may tell you that your memories are wrong. They may try to convince everyone that you're the problem. But never stop trusting your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Seek support. Ask questions. And remember, the truth doesn't disappear simply because someone lies. The audience stood and applauded, not because my story was dramatic, but because it was about finding hope after betrayal. That evening, as I walked through the park, I looked up at the sunset. For months, I had asked myself one question. Why did this happen to me? Now I finally had a different question. What can I build from here? The answer was simple. A better life. One built on honesty, respect, peace, and people who truly cared about me. Looking back, I realized something important. The hidden camera didn't save my life. The truth did. The camera simply gave the truth a voice. Daniel believed he could control my future by making everyone doubt me. Instead, his own actions became the evidence that exposed him. His greatest mistake wasn't underestimating technology. It was underestimating the strength of someone who refused to give up. If you're listening to this story, and you've ever been made to question yourself, remember this. Your value is not decided by someone else's opinion. Real love never destroys your confidence. Real love never makes you feel worthless. The right people will never ask you to doubt your own reality just to protect their lies. Trust your instincts. Protect your peace. And never be afraid to stand up for the truth. Because the truth has a quiet kind of power. It may take time. It may test your patience. But sooner or later, it always finds its way into the light. The end.